Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make some quite nice looking hedges. These are pretty simple to make and you can pick up the materials pretty much anywhere. Yeah, and as you can see the finished product's quite realistic. You'll see a lot of these in the photos on the website. Okay, so the materials for this are pretty simple. You're going to need some sort of flock, clump foliage, or whatever you like to call it. I make my own out of foam, but yeah, just any woodland scenic or similar flock will do. You're going to want some of this mat, which is basically just doormat. The sort of coconut fibre or sisal, I'm not quite sure what this stuff is, but yeah, you get doormats all around the world. Most people use these for making wheat fields or cornfields in Flames of War. And of course PVA, white glue, and something to base it on. So I'm using just strips of MDF because I've got some offcuts from things I was doing in the shed, and it's pretty easy to get hold of for most people. You could use acrylic or thin plywood or anything else you like, really. But yeah, as I say, I'm just using MDF in this case. Okay, one other item you're going to want is some static grass. Now, I prefer the blends which have got 2 or 3 colours in them. This one I'm using, I think, is WWS is 2mm static grass. So I'm just going to use this underneath the hedge for the grass lines. Firstly, you're going to want some strips of this material, and you're going to want thin strips. So I generally just cut a strip off the side of one of these mats with a craft knife, about 6mm or so wide, and it requires a fair amount of pressure to cut through. Once you've cut through with your box cutter or craft knife, you should have some nice easy to work with strips. Okay, I like to tease them out a bit, and yeah, you can go to the trouble of just shortening up some bits to sort of give a bit of an irregular shape to the hedge. So I quite often go through and do that, just to yeah, just make your hedge a bit more interesting, a little less sort of perfectly linear. Yeah, so something like that. That works easy, it's nice. And you'll find that these are the mat itself is about 15mm tall, so it's actually perfect for Flames of War hedges. It works okay. This method works okay for bolt action as well, remembering we're putting a 15mm hedge on top of a 3mm base, so by the time it's sitting next to a bolt action figure or you know, 28mm Warhammer figure, it's still going to look pretty good. Okay, so once you've worked out, you know, cut your first strip, you just want to cut your MDF strip. Now I use a craft knife, a couple of good strong runs through on each side, and then it can simply just be snapped. Now for the ones you'll see later, I've gone ahead and used a belt sander, but as I'm showing here, it's pretty easy to use the craft knife to cut through the and taper down the edges of the base. Be really careful. I don't want to be responsible for you cutting your hands off. But yeah, yeah, it's a pretty quick process if you've got a sharp craft knife. This one obviously isn't. Yeah, there we go. Now we're going to be flocking this with a little bit of static grass, so it doesn't really matter if the edges aren't perfectly rounded. The way that static grass sort of sticks up, it tends to round off sharp edges on terrain anyway. So yeah, I'm not going to be too worried. I'll just give this a few more slices, get it all done all the way through around. Make sure you round off the corners and get rid of any fluffy bits that were created at the ends. Okay, so once you've got a reasonably shaped up base, it's really just as simple as a bit of PVA on here, all the way along, fairly generous coating. And plonk it down on the base, making sure that it's sort of pretty much central, although that's not entirely required, but yeah, you get the picture. Okay, once the glue's dried and you're satisfied that they're stuck down properly, just go through and paint the edge of the MDF so that it doesn't look too bright and glaring once you've finished it. You know, often the flock doesn't perfectly cover everything, so it's a good idea to make sure that you've got a good base coat on. It also helps cover up some of the grey from the rubberized plastic base of the mat. Okay, rightio, so simple as that. Now this is just watered down acrylic house paint, brown obviously, easy to get hold of. Yeah, the watering down really helps it to speed up the painting process. It seems to get sucked into any grain or fibres that are there, and also helps make your paint go a bit further. So I'll go through and finish off the rest of these, and we'll come back and I'll show you how simple it is to flock them up. Once the paint's dried, you want to go through and flock the bases with the static grass. And I just run a bead of PVA glue along each side and spread it out with a brush. You just want to make sure that you don't get too much on there, because you don't want it running all over the place, but you do need enough to stick down the static grass nicely. Going to have to work reasonably quick too, as the PVA dries out fairly quickly. Yeah, so just spread it out, get it all on there, and once you're happy with that, it's just a case of dropping it into your ice cream container or box with the static grass, dropping it all over the base, and then giving the container a good bang, so that all of the static grass sticks up nicely. There we go. Yeah. So that's not looking too bad. Okay, I've let the PVA dry on the static grass, and now I'm going to put the clump foliage on the rest of the the hedgerow. So what you want to do is brush on the PVA pretty thick, and yeah, just work it into all of the raised branches of your hedge. You don't want to go all the way down to the base of the hedge, because often you will in real life see twiggy sticks sticking up between your hedgerows. Yeah, so basically I'm hitting the tops about 5mm up from the base of the hedge. Okay, so that's all done. Just a good dollop of PVA, and then get your clump foliage and just push it on. And the one thing is, you don't want to brush it off afterwards. You just want to push this clump foliage into the hedge so that it sort of sticks in there, has a chance to get glued in, and we'll come along later with a soft paintbrush and brush that off. But as you can see, that's working quite nicely. Yep. And again, just look in the sides there, so if you can see any PVA, just get in there and push a bit more foam in. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put that to one side and carry on with the next one. Any bits that have got the static grass on them, just make sure that you cover them with PVA so you get clump foliage over the top. It's much easier to cover up the bits of static grass than it is to cut them off later. Yeah, so once it's all good, once again, get stuck in there and just push the chopped up foam into the PVA. Then leave it to set. I mean, it's quite nice. Quite often you'll end up with one or two little bits sticking out that haven't got PVA on them, or haven't got a piece of clump foliage stuck to them, and they'll just look like a dead branch in the hedge. So I mean, it's just, yeah, looks quite natural and realistic. Righto guys, after seeing how they're made, I'm sure you wanted to see the results. Basically, I've just brushed off any excess from the bases, so I didn't really need to show you that step. I just got rid of any bits that weren't properly glued down by just giving them a light brush with my fingers, and they're good to go. The light coloured parts from the base of the mat look quite good as underbrush for the hedges, and quite realistic. So yeah, I really like this technique. It's quick, it's simple, and you get great results without having to be an expert. Hope your hedges work out as good for you as mine have for me. Cheers guys, enjoy, bye.